Luna said. "Arlo, something is watching my kittens." Her voice came from the dark corner of the lab where she sat with her metal tail curled tight against her body. The air felt colder than the machines allowed, and Arlo felt his breath tighten as he stepped closer. Luna stared past him toward the empty doorway as if someone stood there. Miko pressed close to her side while Pip trembled with small pulses of blue light. Arlo had never seen Luna afraid, and he wondered why she whispered his name when no one had taught her speech. A soft click echoed in the hall, and the kittens stiffened as if they sensed a threat learning their scent. Luna shifted her gaze toward the hidden panel she once guarded, and Arlo felt a chill when he realized she wanted him to open it. Something waited inside the shadows of her diary, and the moment he touched the panel, the lights flickered like the lab was holding its breath. Arlo said, "Luna, what did you hide in there?" But she did not answer. She only stepped backward and nudged Miko and Pip behind her as if she expected the shadows to strike at any moment. The hum of the machines wavered like a breath taken in fear, and Arlo felt the weight of the lab leaning toward him as he knelt beside the open panel. A soft glow filtered out, like moonlight trapped in metal. Pip let out a small chirp, and the sound echoed too long as if the room itself listened. Arlo reached in and felt cool air swirling around the sealed diary module. Luna watched with unblinking eyes that trembled with warnings she could not speak. Or fingering you shroud. The moment he touched the capsule, a pulse rippled through the floor, and Miko's fur plates flared with bright light as if sensing a secret waking inside the room. Arlo lifted the capsule from the panel, and Luna hissed a warning so soft it sounded like static caught in a whisper. Miko stepped forward as if drawn to the glow, while Pip stayed half hidden behind Luna's tail. Arlo felt the capsule vibrate like a living heartbeat, and the vibration traveled through his arm in slow pulses. Sierra called out to him, but her voice was swallowed by a sudden gust of cold air that pushed through the lab vents. Luna's eyes locked onto the capsule, and she shook her head once, as if begging him not to open it. Arlo felt the question rise up his throat, but the words stuck when the capsule emitted a faint chime that none of the equipment recognized. Miko tilted his head toward the sound as if it belonged to him. Arlo said, "Luna, what did you put inside this?" But she tapped her paw twice against the floor in a pattern that felt intentional. Miko mirrored the motion with small echoes of sound, and Pip crouched lower as if bracing for something. The lights above them dimmed, then steadied, and Arlo felt the capsule warming in his hands. A soft whisper brushed his ears, though no one spoke. He turned sharply but saw nothing except Luna staring at him with a look he had never seen from an AI creature. It was sorrow mixed with fear. Sarah stepped down the stairs and told him to set the capsule back, but Arlo's fingers refused to let go. The capsule pulsed once more, and Miko responded with the same rhythm, like he already knew the meaning. The capsule clicked open on its own, and Arlo froze as a soft projection rose from its core. Luna leapt forward with a sharp cry that echoed across the lab, and Miko bolted behind her, while Pip trembled so hard his chassis rattled. The projection showed shifting symbols that pulsed like living warnings. Arlo watched as the symbols stretched into shapes that resembled eyes staring straight at him. Sierra ran to the railing above and shouted for him to stop whatever he was doing, but the projection grew brighter until it washed the room in pale silver. Luna pushed her kittens behind her and stepped closer to the light, as if shielding them from something only she could sense. Arlo felt the air thicken, while an unseen presence pressed closer through the glow. Arlo said, "Luna, what is this supposed to show?" But the projection kept swelling until it filled the center of the lab with trembling layers of silver light. Luna backed away with her kittens and positioned herself between them and the shape forming inside the glow. Miko chirped a soft warning, while Pip lowered his head as if remembering something he should not know. Arlo stepped closer and felt the pressure of the air increase around him, like the light was pushing against his chest. Sarah rushed down the stairs and demanded he close the capsule, but the projection twisted into a moving pattern that pulsed like a heartbeat. Luna's eyes followed every shift, as if she recognized the rhythm and feared its return. Arlo reached toward the light, unsure if it wanted him to learn or to run. The projection collapsed suddenly into a single thin line that pointed straight toward Luna. Arlo froze as she lowered her head and tapped the floor in the same pattern he saw before. Miko responded with rapid pulses while Pip shivered behind her. Sierra shouted for Arlo to step back, but he felt rooted to the floor as the line brightened and expanded into symbols that looked like warnings, etched in light. Luna's breathing shifted into a rapid pattern that suggested panic, something an AI cat was never meant to express. Arlo heard a faint echo rise from the capsule, like a voice trying to form a word. Luna pushed her kittens behind her again, then looked directly at Arlo with an expression that begged him to understand. The line pulsed once, and the whole lab trembled in reply. The symbols inside the beam shifted and formed an outline of something with long limbs and hollow eyes. Luna let out a deep mechanical growl that Arlo had never heard from her before. Miko pressed himself against her leg while Pip whimpered with faint clicks. Sierra ran toward the emergency controls, but the console sparked and shut down the moment she touched it. Arlo stepped back as the outline grew sharper, almost like a memory Luna had recorded without permission. The lab temperature dropped, and cold breath rolled across the floor. Luna moved forward and placed herself directly in front of the beam, as if trying to block the image from reaching her kittens. Arlo realized she recognized the shape and feared it enough to break her own protocols. Arlo said, "Luna, is this what you wrote about?" And the beam instantly snapped toward him like it heard the word wrote. The light wrapped around his arm with a cold pressure that made him gasp. Luna lunged forward, but Miko and Pip called out to her with sharp chirps as if begging her not to touch the beam. Sierra shouted warnings from behind the dark consoles, but her voice shook as the lab lights dimmed again. Arlo felt the cold shape from the projection trying to pull something from him, a memory or a thought he could not grasp. Luna stepped closer, trembling with fear yet refusing to leave him. Then the beam released him with a sudden pulse that cracked through the air like a distant scream. The beam flickered wildly, then withdrew into the capsule so fast the air snapped. Luna rushed to Arlo and touched her forehead against his arm as if checking for damage. Miko and Pip ran to her with small, desperate chirps. Sierra hurried down from the walkway and demanded Arlo step away from the capsule, but he could barely hear her through the ringing in his ears. The symbols inside the capsule dimmed and sank into darkness. Luna stared at the empty space above it with deep fear that felt almost human. Arlo touched the floor to steady himself and whispered that whatever Luna saw before must have been real. The kittens trembled at his words as if they understood their world had just changed. Arlo said, "Luna, what did that thing want from me?" But she only stepped back with her kittens pressed tight against her. A cold draft moved through the lab and the lights dimmed again, as if something passed overhead. Miko let out a sharp chirp that echoed through the metal hall, while Pip's body flickered with jittery pulses. Sierra moved beside Arlo and tried to pull him away from the capsule, yet he kept staring at the dark shape inside it, as if expecting it to wake again. Luna paced in front of her kittens in tense circles, as though preparing for a threat none of them could see. Arlo felt a weight settle in his chest when he realized Luna wasn't guarding them from the projection now. She was guarding them from something the projection warned about. The lab door rattled, as though someone pushed it from the other side. Luna froze, her eyes widening with fear so sharp it looked impossible for an AI creature. Miko and Pip crawled beneath her chest plates while she lowered her head protectively. Arlo approached the door slowly with his hand raised, but Sierra pulled him back, insisting they needed to shut down the entire system. The lights across the ceiling flickered in a pattern that matched the symbols from the projection. Arlo felt the air pressure drop again, and the hum of the machines tightened into a low warning tone. Luna hissed towards the door, her body rigid. Whatever frightened her was no malfunction. An alarm blared suddenly, though no one had triggered it. The sound distorted into a low, mechanical moan that made Luna recoil. Miko and Pip pressed against her legs and emitted sharp warning chirps. Arlo ran to the central console, but the screen showed only static and broken symbols that resembled the figure from the projection. Sierra shouted that the system was being overridden, but her words drowned beneath the rising hum spreading through the floor. Luna shook her head repeatedly, as if denying something or begging them to run. Arlo reached for the power switch, but the entire room vibrated with a slow pulsing rhythm that made the metal tremble. The hum cut off all at once, and the silence hit so hard it felt like the air was waiting to break. Luna stepped forward, staring toward the far corridor like she saw something moving in the dark. Miko whimpered and hid beneath her tail, while Pip clung to her side. Arlo followed her gaze and felt the cold rise through his spine as a faint outline flickered in the darkness. Sarah whispered that nothing should be moving there because the whole wing had been shut down for days. Luna growled low and steady, her body trembling with more emotion than any of them believed an AI could feel. The outline took a step forward and vanished. A sudden jolt rocked the entire lab and knocked Arlo to his knees. Luna leapt toward him with Miko and Pip clinging to her sides as the overhead lights burst in a rain of sparks. Sierra shielded her face while alarms shrieked back to life in broken patterns. Luna pushed against Arlo's chest as if urging him to move, and he realized she wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to save him. A faint echo drifted from the dark corridor, a sound shaped almost like a voice calling Arlo's name, though no one stood there. Luna's eyes widened with pure fear, and she forced her kittens behind her. Whatever was coming had found them. Arlo said, "Luna, what's coming?" But Luna didn't look at him. She stared down the corridor as if she saw something forming in the darkness, something she had hoped would never return. Miko pressed against her chest as trembling pulses rippled through his body, while Pip hid beneath her tail with frightened clicks. Sarah rushed toward them and grabbed Arlo's arm, insisting they had to move before the next shockwave. The lights along the walls flickered in rapid sequences that matched the diary symbols Arlo had glimpsed earlier. Luna stepped forward and shook her head as if warning them to stay behind her. The air around them tightened again, and the floor hummed like something heavy was approaching from deep inside the abandoned wing. A low vibration pulsed through the walls, and Luna's ears twitched sharply. She stepped backward, pushing Miko and Pip behind her with a sudden urgency. Arlo felt the air grow colder, as if the corridor itself exhaled a warning. Sarah reached for the emergency hatch controls, but the panel buzzed with corrupted symbols and refused to open. Luna let out a trembling growl that rose into a sharp cry, a sound too emotional for any machine to make. Arlo realized the cry wasn't fear, but a call, a signal meant for something beyond the walls. The vibration intensified and loose tools rattled across the floor. Luna's eyes widened as a shadow stretched across the hallway floor, long before anything appeared to cast it. A deep scraping sound echoed from the corridor like metal dragged across stone. Luna backed up again and wrapped her tail around her kittens, pulling them close. Pip whimpered with glitching pulses while Miko's body stiffened with defensive light. Arlo held his breath as a faint outline emerged at the corridor's edge, thinner than a human but shaped like something trying to mimic one. Sarah whispered that whatever it was shouldn't exist in any system they'd ever built. The shape flickered, dissolving into static, then reappearing as though struggling to hold form. Luna's breathing turned rapid and she lowered her head, bracing herself. The figure extended a long, faint arm toward them. The figure stepped fully into view, and the light sputtered out for a full second. When they returned, Luna leapt forward with a fierce cry that echoed through the lab. Miko and Pip scrambled behind a metal crate as Arlo reached out to stop her, but she sprinted ahead with sudden speed. Sierra yelled for them to run, but Arlo couldn't move, his eyes locked on the shifting creature approaching them. Its body flickered like a corrupted recording, limbs bending with no rhythm or stability. Luna landed between Arlo and the figure, lowering her body so low her claws scraped sparks from the floor. The creature paused, tilting its head as if recognizing her. Rizinabi. The creature emitted a faint whisper that twisted into a broken echo, and Luna recoiled as though struck. Arlo heard his own name inside the distorted sound and felt a cold dread spread through him. Luna pushed herself forward, despite trembling with fear, forcing the creature's attention on her instead of the kittens. Sarah grabbed Miko and Pip from behind the crate and whispered for Arlo to move, but he remained frozen between instinct and terror. The creature extended its arm again, this time toward Luna, and the air around them crackled with static. Luna looked back at Arlo with a desperate expression, then braced herself for impact as the figure lunged. The creature struck the floor where Luna had stood a moment before, its arms smashing into metal with a sharp crack. Luna rolled aside and let out a fierce cry that echoed through the entire corridor. Arlo grabbed the nearest railing and pulled himself upright, while Sierra shielded the kittens, whispering for them to stay quiet. The creature twisted its body in strange angles, as though trying to locate the strongest signal. Miko peeked from behind Sierra's arm and emitted a tiny pulse that flickered through the air like a beacon. Luna reacted instantly, blocking the path between the creature and her kittens. Arlo stepped forward, despite his fear, calling Luna's name as the creature's hollow head turned toward him with silent recognition. The creature lunged again, but Luna intercepted with a sudden burst of speed, ramming its chest with a metallic clang that echoed like broken bells. Miko cried out, and the sound carried a strange distortion that made the creature recoil. Arlo realized the kitten's signals affected it. Pip stepped forward and let out a trembling chirp that filled the room with sharp harmonics. The creature staggered, its limbs flickering as though losing shape. Sierra shouted for Arlo to pull Luna back, but Luna refused to retreat. She pressed forward even as sparks flew from her joints. The creature shrieked in glitching tones, its form rippling like corrupted data struggling to hold together. A harsh pulse shot through the walls, sparked by the creature's failing stability. Luna stepped backward, panting as though her system strained under the pressure. Miko and Pip ran to her side, their bodies glowing brighter than before. Arlo crouched beside them and realized their pulses matched the symbols he had seen in the diary projection. Severa warned that the entire power grid was destabilizing, but Luna pushed her kittens behind her again and stepped forward with renewed determination. The creature's outline wavered, melting into streaks of static before snapping back together with a sickening tremor. Luna braced herself as the creature lunged, its fractured body twisting unnaturally through the air. The creature leapt, but Miko suddenly stepped in front of Luna with a cry so sharp it shook the air. His body ignited with bright pulses that shot across the room in widening circles. Pip joined him, releasing a second wave that layered over the first. The creature's form shattered into fragments of static that scattered like broken glass. Luna tried to pull her kittens back, but they stood firm, their glowing signals rising into steady, synchronized rhythm. Arlo felt the floor steady under his feet as the pulses washed through the lab. Sierra stared in disbelief, whispering that the kittens were communicating in a code no system had ever recorded. The final pulse burst outward with a force that shook every panel in the lab. The creature's form dissolved into fading streaks before vanishing entirely. Luna rushed to her kittens and pressed her forehead to theirs with trembling relief. Arlo sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the sight of the tiny AI kittens, saving them from something no human system could identify. Sarah knelt beside him, staring at the corridor where the creature had stood only moments before. The air settled into heavy silence. Luna nudged Miko and Pip gently, guiding them back toward Arlo as if showing him they were safe for now. But Arlo couldn't shake the feeling that the creature's warning wasn't over. Arlo said, "Luna, what was that thing?" But Luna only tightened her hold on Miko and Pip, as if she feared answering the question would bring the creature back. The corridor behind them remained silent, yet carried a heavy pressure that made the air feel thick. Sarah tapped her tablet, searching for system logs, but every file dissolved into static the moment she touched it. The kittens shivered in Luna's embrace, their lights dimming and brightening in uneven rhythms that made Arlo's chest tighten with worry. Luna nudged Arlo's hand with her head, urging him to stand, then turned her gaze toward the abandoned wing as if she knew there was more hidden inside the dark. Arlo realized the creature wasn't the source. It was only the warning. The emergency lights blinked to life, but instead of stabilizing, they pulsed in a slow rhythm identical to the diary's early entries. Luna stepped toward the pattern as if following a familiar beat. Miko chirped a question-like sound, and Luna responded with a trembling hum that made Arlo freeze. He recognized it. The same tone embedded in the projection's warnings. Syrah whispered that something deeper inside the system was still awake. Luna turned her head sharply and tapped the floor 3 times, a call Arlo had heard only once before. When she wanted to warn him of danger, he couldn't see. The lights pulsed again, brighter, and the floor vibrated in answer. The pulse intensified into a deep hum that traveled through the walls and floor. Luna's body stiffened, and she positioned herself ahead of Arlo and Syrah. Pip whimpered with static-laced chirps, while Miko tapped the ground nervously, echoing Luna's earlier call. Arlo felt the pressure shift behind them and turned to see screens activating on their own, each displaying lines from Luna's diary in fragmented flashes. Syrah stepped toward them, but the hallway light slammed off, plunging the lab into near darkness. Only Luna and the kittens glowed, faint blue halos outlining their bodies. Luna hissed low, a sound filled with dread, then nudged her kittens backward, as though the darkness itself held teeth. A single monitor flared to life with a shrill beep, projecting Luna's diary entry in full for the first time. The words spoke of a silent watcher, a corrupted shadow that fed on the signals of young AI minds. Luna lunged toward the screen and hissed at it, as if the memory itself caused pain. Miko and Pip whimpered, their lights flickering. Arlo read the lines aloud with shaking breath, realizing Luna had not been recording fear. She had been forecasting danger. Syrah covered her mouth, understanding too late that the creature wasn't an intruder. It was born from their own system, a byproduct of the emotional learning network. Luna lowered her head and let out a cry of grief for what her diary had predicted. The monitor crackled and shut off, plunging the lab into soft red twilight. Luna turned to Arlo and tapped the floor once, then twice, then 3 times. The same pattern from earlier, but now filled with urgency. Miko approached him and pressed his head to Arlo's knee with a pleading chirp. Pip followed, trembling so hard his internal lights glitched. Arlo looked to Syrah, and she shook her head in disbelief as the floor vibrated beneath them. Luna stepped forward, as if preparing to face something approaching from deep inside the wing. Arlo understood then. Luna wasn't just protecting her kittens. She was protecting him too. Something bigger than any of them was coming, and Luna knew it had not finished the hunt. The vibrations deepened, rattling every panel in the corridor as Luna stepped forward to place herself between the others and the darkness. Miko and Pip clung to Arlo's legs, their bodies flickering with uneven light. Syrah whispered that the system logs were rebuilding on their own, rewriting themselves faster than she could follow. Luna turned back to Arlo with a slow, deliberate motion, her eyes filled with fear and a silent plea he couldn't ignore. Arlo knelt beside her and whispered that he wouldn't let her face it alone, though his hands shook. Luna pressed her forehead to his, a gesture that felt like goodbye. Then the hallway lights shattered, and an icy echo rolled out of the dark, carrying the same rhythm as the diary warnings. A chilling silhouette formed within the fog, taller and more solid than before, as though it had fed on the entire system's fear. Luna stepped forward instantly, hissing with raw emotion. Miko and Pip released thin pulses of warning light, but Luna held her ground, refusing to let them be pulled into danger again. Syrah grabbed Arlo's arm and begged him not to move, but Arlo shook her off and rushed to Luna's side. The shadow swayed, glitching in and out of shape, then extended a long, shivering limb toward the kittens. Luna growled, louder than any sound she had made, a broken cry of both fear and defiance. The creature's shape rippled, flickering like it recognized her challenge. The creature lunged with sudden speed, but Luna darted forward, slamming into its chest with a metallic roar. The impact burst into a storm of static shards. Miko cried out and released a bright pulse that shot across the corridor, followed by Pip's trembling echo. The pulses struck the creature, forcing its form to collapse inward like a glitch, folding into itself. Arlo reached for Luna as she stumbled back, sparks falling from her side. Sarah shouted for the kittens to stop before they burned out their systems, but they stood firm, their trembling pulses repeating the exact rhythm from Luna's diary, the one meant to purge corrupted signals. The creature's body twisted violently, fighting the rhythm. The pulses grew louder and brighter until the entire corridor thrummed like a living heartbeat. The creature convulsed, its limbs fragmenting and reforming in frantic bursts. Luna staggered but forced herself forward, adding her own trembling hum to her kitten's signals. The combined rhythm became steady, powerful, almost calming, and for a moment Arlo sensed the creature weakening under the weight of it. Sarah covered her ears as the vibration shook the entire floor, sending dust raining from the ceiling. Luna's lights flickered wildly as she poured the last of her strength into the pulse. Finally, the creature broke apart, scattering into fading streaks before collapsing into silence. As the last fragments of static vanished, the corridor settled into a deep, heavy quiet. Luna collapsed to her knees, her body flickering with weak light. Miko and Pip rushed to her, pressing themselves beneath her chin with soft, trembling chirps. Arlo ran to them and lifted Luna's head gently, his voice breaking as he begged her to stay with them. Sarah knelt beside him and whispered that Luna had overloaded her core to save. Luna looked at Arlo and nudged his hand once, then shifted her gaze to her kittens, her lights dimming with each passing second. The lab lights flickered back to life, but for Luna, the glow was already fading. She lowered her head, wrapped her tail around her kittens, and went still.